Yes, I think we should talk about this basic concept.
Which concept?
This week, Parashat Truma, and the Parasha begins with one of the more famous psukim, Vayikhu li Truma. Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Am Yisrael to take for him a donation, to take for him a Truma. And there's a very famous question on this first pasuk. What does it mean, Hashem saying to take for him? He has to command to bring for him, Vayitnu li Truma. What does it mean, Vayikhu li Truma? But even more than that basic famous question, there's a greater question to ask, which is, how do you donate something when HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands you to bring it? Where exactly is the donation? Usually a donation you can bring when it comes from really your heart, like the Torah says later on, you have to voluntarily donate it from your own will. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Vayikhu, Vayitnu, Taviu, doesn't matter what he says. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it, where exactly is the donation? Where exactly is the volunteering from Am Yisrael to do it? So what I want to understand this week is, what exactly is this concept of Truma about? What exactly goes on over here in the beginning of Parashat Truma? And what does this idea of Truma actually mean?
Yeah, interesting. As you said, there's that famous question is, what does it mean to take? Meaning you give Truma. You're not commanded to take Truma. And when you read further on, you actually notice that that same concept of to take is used, but it's used differently. The next few psukim talk about taking from Am Yisrael, meaning referring to the people collecting that this is what they should take, gold and silver. And the word take repeats itself a few times, but it's always in the sense of taking from the people who want to donate. But I think if we can explain the taking at the beginning, based on the taking that's commanded later on, it can give us a whole different perspective of what's going on here. Because maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu isn't commanding Am Yisrael to donate. As you're saying, you can't command to donate. The opposite. It says you don't have to. Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo. The donation has to come from your heart, as you said. That's critical to what a donation actually is. And maybe we can read the pasuk entirely different. There is no commandment to give Truma. There can't be. What there is a commandment is to take Truma. Maybe the commandment at the beginning, Vayikhu li Truma, is also referring to the people collecting Truma, commanding them to take, to accept the Truma that Am Yisrael wants to bring. But this raises another question. Why do you have to command the people collecting the money to take it? Of course they're going to take it. If someone wants to take a donation, who says no to a donation? So why would we need to be commanded to accept a donation? But I think if we look at the flow of what just happened, we think of Matan Torah. They're standing there frightened with the sound and the lightning, hearing the commandments from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then going into Parshat Mishpati and getting a whole set of laws. You do this and you do that. And according to some of the Mefarshim, that this whole Parsha comes actually after Chet HaEgel. If you think of everything that happened here, I think it shines a different light on why we need to be commanded to accept something like this. Because at this point, the feeling is, if you want to follow God's ways, you have to just listen. If this is what you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Don't say anything. Don't think. Just do. This is what Hashem wants from you, period. Don't bring your own feelings. Don't bring your own self. It's not about you. It's about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Parsha here is teaching us something else. And as the end of these few psukim say, V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. This Parsha is about not only doing, it's about how do I bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu into my life. V'shachanti b'tocham, I will rest within them. How can HaKadosh Baruch Hu rest within me? I can follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ways and still He won't rest within me. I'll be doing what I'm told. Technically, I'll be doing everything that I'm told. I'm doing everything right. And it's still, I may not be in the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu rests within me because I'm not actually there. I'm just doing what I'm told. To reach that level of v'shachanti b'tocham, that Hashem will rest within us, we need v'asu li mikdash. We need Am Yisrael to create that temple, to create that mikdash, to sanctify their own nidvat lev, as the pasuk starts. We need that place coming from the heart. We need to give room for that. Don't shut that off, starts the Parsha and says, Chuli Truma. We want Am Yisrael, everyone, every single person. Don't only let the people on the top donate, everyone, any person who wants to be part, wants to bring himself and wants to donate himself from himself towards this, let them do that. We need them to do that. But then comes the second stage. It's great to bring yourself. But if you're only focused on what you want and what you want to bring and what you want to experience, you'll never meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is true with every relationship. I can love someone, but if at the end of the day, I'm not asking myself, what do they actually want? What do they actually need? I'm just thinking of what I want to bring to them, what I want to give to them, and I end up giving them things they don't even want, that don't make them happy. That's not a relationship. It's great for you to be a part of it. It's great for you to come and bring that drive, bring that love, bring that desire to give. But you have to be focused and asking constantly the question is, what does the other person want? And that's what these psukim define. It starts with, anybody who wants to give, take from them. Don't stop it. Take it all. But then it goes on to say, and this is what you should take from them. And gives us a whole list. So do I take everything or do I take a list? And it goes on to say, and I'll rest within them because they're going to do the mikdash. And then the next pasuk, I'm going to give you a blueprint and you're going to do exactly as the blueprint says. So again, is it me bringing or is it a blueprint? That's exactly the point. That's exactly what this Parsha is creating. I want Am Yisrael to bring. I want them to bring that love. I want them to bring themselves into this. But it has to be focused on not just everyone doing what they want, because that leads to chaos. It has to be them bringing themselves, but then focusing on what is the blueprint, what is needed, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me? And this is true for building the Mishkan, and this is true for everything in Avodat Hashem, in serving God. It's not about just following rules, and it's not about expressing myself. It's about trying to express myself, trying to express my feelings, trying to express my love, but within that format, within the format of what does Hashem actually want from me? Not just now this is what I want, because that's nice and it's great, but it's not necessarily what you're asked. And if you go to one end and just express yourself, or go to the other end and just follow rules, on both sides you miss. We need the ahava and the yirah, the love and the fear of God, and together they create a Mishkan, which is in the blueprint of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu defines, but is filled with our donations, and therefore is filled with ourselves, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu fills it and fills us. V'shachanti b'tocham.
Very nice what you're saying. I really like what you're saying, and really that is what Yiddishkeit is about, Judaism is about. On the one hand, working according to the frame set by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, set by Chazal, and on the other hand, expressing yourself, bringing yourself into it, because without being yourself in that frame, basically you have nothing. And like you were saying, we see it throughout the entire parashot now with the Truma and Tetzaveh. But again, in the Truma itself, when Am Yisrael is commanded to bring the Truma, there are a few types of Trumot. They can bring what they want, but also they have to bring the Beka Legulgolot. They have to bring that half a shekel. They have to bring that half a coin, that certain amount each one has to bring. That is a specific Truma for a specific cause, because you do have that frame. Even when you want to bring it from yourself, from your own desire, from your own heart, it still has to be according to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. And maybe there's something a lot deeper with this concept of Truma, like we've discussed many times in this channel, because we have to understand the Hebrew expression, the words behind what we're actually saying. So this concept of Truma is from the Shoresh of Rum, of Lehitromim, to rise, to bring up, to lift up. And when you think about the physical world and the spiritual mental world, there's a very big difference, which is the opposite between those two worlds when it comes to picking up yourself, raising yourself. Because in the physical world, no matter how hard a person tries, a person will never be able to raise himself up, to pick themselves up by holding themselves. You can't hold your legs and pick yourself up. It doesn't work like that. You have to use something external in order to lift you, someone or something. You can't just hold your legs and pick yourself up. However, the exact opposite is true in the spiritual and in the mental world, where if a person is depressed, no matter what happens, no matter how much people around that person try to lift that person up, that person won't rise. That person won't get out of that depression until that person himself decides he wants to lift himself up. He wants to get out of that depression. Because in the mental and in the spiritual world, in order to raise yourself up, it starts with you. It starts with who you are, with picking yourself up. It's true for mentally, it's true for anything you want to do in life, and especially on the spiritual level, where you are the one who have to decide to pick yourself up. Like we've discussed many times last week a few weeks ago, where it's up to you to continue the learning, to continue the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to continue the adding of more and more steps to your spiritual life and climbing them. You are the one in charge, and if you don't do it, you won't climb. Nobody will pick you up. Nobody will raise you unless you take that step forward. And maybe this is what's behind this concept of Truma, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands to take this Truma, but it has to come me'et kol ish asher yidven libo, like you were saying. You have to fill in this commandment with your desire, with your will, in order to start picking yourself up, because without you being the base for picking up, you won't rise, you won't go up those levels. And maybe also, going back to what I started with, maybe this is the idea of Truma, of the different Trumot we have, where we have Trumot that each person could have brought whatever they want, but we also have the Trumat HaAdanim, where the Trumat HaAdanim came from Beka LaGulgolet, from the certain amount of money each individual in Am Yisrael had to bring. And these Adanim, or these basic squares, these basic base, that on them, the Krashim, on them, the walls of the Mishkan would be set. And these Adanim are the foundation of the Mishkan, and maybe this is why each individual in Am Yisrael had to donate an exact certain amount towards this base, towards the foundation of the Mishkan, the base of the Mishkan, because again, this is what maybe the Truma is about. This whole idea, this concept which we are being taught over here, is that you have to first pick up yourself, to raise yourself up in order to be raised. You first have to bring yourself in order to bring that donation. It first has to come from your heart, from your own desire, from your own will. And like you were saying, in order for the Mishkan, the Mikdash, to have a role for all of Am Yisrael, each individual in Am Yisrael had to donate towards that base, to be part of that base. And again, maybe this is what's behind this idea of Truma, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanding us to bring the Truma, because maybe this is what Judaism, Yiddishkeit is about. We are commanded by many commands, and we have a lot of mitzvahs to do, but we have to find the place within them to bring our own heart to them. As we know from the famous Gemara, Achmana Liba Bai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants our heart. That is what he's looking for. He's looking for our desire, and to fill those commandments in with our own desire, with our own will.
Yeah, and I think we see this in Chet HaEgel with the golden calf soon in Parashat Kitisa. We see this as the contrast of what we're talking about here. And as the Mefarshim explain, actually the building of the Mishkan, what we're talking about here, happens after Chet HaEgel. First, they get it wrong. Chet HaEgel is exactly that experience where they're looking, they donate. We have the same description of them going and donating. They wanted to bring themselves, but they got too caught up in it. They ended up reaching Avodah Zarah because they were only focused on what they want to bring. They weren't waiting for the answers. They weren't waiting for Moshe because he didn't come when they wanted. So they got totally focused inwards, which is exactly what Avodah Zarah is. It's focusing on your side of things and looking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the story. So in that sense, here in Parashat Truma, it's exactly the tikkun of that. You want to express yourselves. You want to express yourselves because you were sitting there and you got so excited in Matan Torah, you got so excited with everything that's happening and you want to be a part of it. But now you have to look for et tavnit Mishkan ve'et kol kelav. Bring yourselves. Kuli Truma. Accept that Truma. But look how to fit it into the framework of what we want to do. And as we know, all the Parshas going forward repeat the words again and again of Am Yisrael doing as they were told, Moshe doing as he was told, constantly repeating that fact where they did start with bringing their heart, but the reason this time it doesn't lead to the golden calf is because building the Mishkan, they're bringing their heart and fitting it within the framework, balancing those two sides to really achieve V'shachanti b'tocham.
Beautiful, beautiful. And of course, it goes way deeper than that, but we'll have to end here because we're out of time. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like it, comment below the video on YouTube. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, please consider subscribing right here. And we'll just remind our viewers what we discussed last year. Last year in Parashat Truma, we discussed the whole idea of the Shulchan, of Lechem Apanim. Why does the Mishkan need a table? What is the Lechem Apanim about? Why did we have to have a constant Lechem Apanim on the table? Always, we are very familiar with the Ner Tamid, with the light that was always lit, with the Korban Tamid, with the offering that was always brought, but kind of neglected the idea that also there was Lechem Apanim Tamid on the table. There was always bread on the table. Why is that so important? Why is it so important for today's life, for the Parnasa in today's life? We'll link that video right now. Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and in Mitzvah Hashem, we'll talk again next week. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.